The mockery. The Grand Council chamber of Nexus Prime had never witnessed such desperation. Representatives from 12 of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations sat around the massive circular table, their varied forms creating a living museum of evolution's diversity. Above them, a holographic display showed the nightmare that had returned to haunt the galaxy after 1,000 years of peace. Admiral Krixtal of the Zenthari Empire stood at the head of the assembly, his crystalline body refracting the chamber's light into prismatic rainbows. His voice resonated with harmonic frequencies that made the very air vibrate. "The Devourers have returned," he announced, his tone carrying the weight of impending doom. "Our long-range sensors confirm it. 17 ships, each the size of a small moon, emerging from the void beyond the Andromeda border." General Vorth of the Krullian Dominion clicked his mandibles in agitation. His insectoid form towered over the other delegates, 4 arms gesturing emphatically as he spoke. "My scouts report their technology has evolved. These are not the same machines our ancestors barely defeated. They have adapted, grown stronger during their exile." Ambassador Lyra of the Ethereal Collective shimmered into partial visibility, her energy-based form rippling with concern. "The last war cost us billions of lives and dozens of worlds. Our combined fleets were reduced to scattered remnants. How can we possibly face them again?" The chamber erupted into chaos as each representative began speaking at once. The Aquarian delegate's gills fluttered with anxiety as he described his empire's mighty submersible fleet. The Pyroclan ambassador's flame-wreathed form danced higher as he boasted of plasma cannons that could melt asteroids. Each civilization presented their military might, their advanced weapons, their revolutionary shield technologies. Through it all, Captain Alina Vasquez sat quietly in the corner reserved for humanity's representative. At 45, she carried herself with the calm confidence of someone who had seen too much to be easily impressed. Her weathered hands bore the scars of 20 years spent in the depths of space, maintaining equipment that should have been scrapped decades ago. Her brown hair was streaked with premature gray, tied back in a simple ponytail that had become her trademark throughout the outer colonies. Her uniform was different from the ornate ceremonial dress worn by the other military representatives. It was practical, functional, bearing the patches and repairs of actual service rather than parade ground display. The fabric showed the wear patterns of someone who worked alongside her crew rather than commanding from a distant bridge. Admiral Krixtal's attention finally turned to the human delegation. His crystalline features arranged themselves into what might have been condescension. "And what does Earth contribute to our defense? We have heard little from humanity during this crisis." Captain Vasquez rose slowly, her movements economical and precise. Every eye in the chamber turned toward her as she walked to the central display. Her voice was calm, almost conversational, cutting through the ambient noise of the chamber like a sharp blade through silk. "Earth offers the UES resilience." The silence that followed lasted exactly 4 seconds before the laughter began. General Vorth's chittering amusement mixed with the melodic chuckles of the Ethereal Collective's representatives. Even the normally dignified Zenthari allowed their crystalline forms to shift to colors indicating mirth. "The mining vessel." Admiral Krixtal's voice carried obvious disbelief. "Captain Vasquez, with all due respect, your ship predates modern military technology by 3 decades. It was built for asteroid mining, not warfare." General Vorth's 4 eyes focused on her with something approaching pity. "I have reviewed your vessel's specifications. Its hull plating couldn't withstand a training exercise, much less combat with the Devourers." The Aquarian delegate's translator device conveyed his bubbling laughter. "Honored human, our pleasure craft carry more armament than your entire ship." Captain Vasquez waited patiently for the laughter to subside, her dark eyes never leaving the holographic display of the approaching Devourer fleet. When silence finally returned, she spoke again with the same quiet confidence. "And I guarantee the resilience will destroy them all." The laughter stopped instantly. Every being in the chamber stared at this small human woman who had just promised the impossible with the casual tone of someone discussing the weather. Admiral Crickstall's form flickered through confused color spectrums. Captain, that is not possible. The mathematics alone. 15 years, Vasquez interrupted, her voice cutting through his protests. 15 years, my crew and I have been preparing for exactly this moment. She manipulated the central display, replacing the Devourer fleet projection with detailed schematics of her ship. What appeared on the screen made several delegates lean forward in confusion, rather than ridicule. The UES Resilience looked exactly like what it was supposed to be, an old converted mining vessel. Its hull showed the scars of decades in space, patches of mismatched metal, where repairs had been made with whatever materials were available. Its weapon systems appeared to be improvised modifications of industrial equipment. By every conventional measure, it was utterly unsuitable for military action. But Captain Vasquez's presentation revealed something else entirely. Hidden beneath the obvious modifications were systems that defied easy categorization. Power conduits that didn't match any known configuration. Sensor arrays that seemed designed for purposes the aliens couldn't immediately identify. Storage compartments that contained materials with properties that made the assembled scientists mutter among themselves. Your ship appears to violate several fundamental principles of engineering, observed the mechanical concordat's representative, its robotic voice carrying a note of professional curiosity. These power distribution patterns should result in catastrophic system failures. Vasquez's lips curved into what might have been a smile, but her eyes remained cold as deep space. Conventional engineering, yes, but we've had 15 years to learn new principles. She changed the display again, showing footage that made every being present lean forward in horrified fascination. The Resilience was shown approaching what appeared to be a derelict Devourer scout ship, one of the small reconnaissance units that had been probing the galaxy's defenses for the past year. What happened next defied every principle of civilized warfare. Instead of engaging at long range with energy weapons, the human ship closed to contact distance. Instead of attempting to disable the enemy vessel with precision strikes, the Resilience's crew did something that made the assembled delegates recoil in shock. They began to cut it open. The footage showed humans in improvised environmental suits using industrial plasma cutters to breach the Devourer's hull while it was still active. They moved like salvage crews rather than soldiers, working methodically to dissect the enemy ship as it struggled to defend itself. "Dear gods," whispered Ambassador Lyra, her energy form flickering with revulsion. "They're dissecting it while it's still alive." The human boarding party moved through the Devourer ship's corridors with the practiced efficiency of people who had done this many times before. They carried weapons that looked like modified mining tools and construction equipment, crude but effective implements designed for cutting through metal and composite materials. 12 scout ships, Captain Vasquez said, her voice flat and professional as the footage continued. Over 15 years of encounters, Vasquez gestured to the holographic fleet display, where the Devourer armada continued its inexorable advance toward the galaxy's core worlds. "I need every ship in the combined fleet to act as a distraction. Draw them into engagement protocols they understand. While they're focused on your conventional battle lines, the Resilience infiltrates their formation and performs what my chief engineer likes to call aggressive technical support." The silence stretched until Admiral Crickstall found his voice. "Captain, what are your crew's survival odds?" Vasquez's response chilled the blood of every being present. Survival was never part of the mission parameters. "Admiral, we're not going there to come back. We're going there to make sure the Devourers never threaten anyone again." Her words hung in the air like a death sentence voluntarily accepted. In the depths of her ship, 43 humans waited for their captain's return, every single one having already volunteered for humanity's final gift to the galaxy. But as the assembled delegates would soon learn, human creativity and stubborn refusal to accept impossible odds would prove to be the galaxy's greatest weapon against an enemy that had grown overconfident in its own superiority. The revelation. The UES Resilience streaked through the void toward the Devourer fleet, her engines pushed far beyond manufacturer specifications. Captain Vasquez gripped her command chair as the ship bucked and shuddered. Every rive and weld strained to the breaking point. Through the viewports, the enemy fleet loomed like a constellation of malevolent stars. 17 massive vessels arranged in perfect geometric formation. Distance to engagement range. Vasquez called over the engine noise. 8 minutes, Captain, replied Lieutenant Torres from the navigation station, sweat beading on her forehead, despite the bridge's cool recycled air. But we're getting some unusual readings from the ship's modified systems. Vasquez's jaw tightened. She had kept the Resilience's deepest secrets even from the Galactic Council. 15 years of salvaging Devourer technology had transformed her ship into something that violated every principle of engineering safety. Chief Rodriguez, report, Vasquez commanded through the intercom. The response came from speakers that seemed to pulse with an electronic heartbeat. Captain, the modified systems are responding to proximity. It's like they're recognizing something in the enemy fleet. The salvaged components are trying to establish connection protocols. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Marcus Chen watched in fascination and growing alarm as systems that should have been incompatible began interfacing with each other. The Devourer technology they had carefully integrated into the ship's infrastructure over years of careful modification was awakening, responding to signals only it could detect. Captain, Chen's voice carried a tremor he couldn't hide. I think they're trying to phone home. The first Devourer interceptors emerged from the main fleet like antibodies responding to an infection. Their sleek, angular forms gleamed with the same technological signatures, now pulsing through the Resilience's hybrid systems. Captain Vasquez watched on the tactical display as 6 enemy ships took flanking positions, their weapon arrays powered but not yet targeting. They're not attacking, Torres observed, her voice tight with confusion. They're investigating, Vasquez corrected, her mind racing through contingency plans she had hoped never to use. They're trying to identify us. Dr. Sarah Kim emerged from the science station, her face pale but determined. As the ship's xenobiologist and the architect of their most desperate strategies, she had spent years preparing for this moment. Captain, the integration is working. The salvaged components are broadcasting identification codes. The Devourers think we're one of them. The Resilience continued its approach, now escorted by enemy vessels that should have been tearing it apart. On her screens, Vasquez could see the confusion among the alien fleet commanders as they watched the impossible sight of human technology being accepted by the galaxy's greatest threat. Range to primary target, she asked quietly. 30 seconds to the command vessel, Torres replied, her hand steady on the controls despite the magnitude of what they were attempting. The Devourer command ship was a monument to artificial evolution, a construct 3 kilometers long that served as the brain of the entire fleet. Its surface was covered with sensor arrays and communication nodes that coordinated the activities of every other vessel in the armada. Chief Chen, Dr. Kim, are you ready? Vasquez asked. All systems prepared for emergency overload, Chen confirmed from engineering. Though I should mention that what we're about to do will probably kill us all in several different ways. Dr. Kim's voice joined the conversation from the laboratory she had converted into a biological warfare station. The viral programs are loaded into the salvaged systems. Once we establish direct contact with their command network, we'll have approximately 4 minutes before they identify us as hostile. And if this doesn't work? Torres asked quietly. Vasquez's smile was sharp enough to cut starlight. Then we improvise. The Resilience slid into docking position, with the Devourer command ship, her jury-rigged systems interfacing directly with technology that had been old when Earth's first civilizations were learning to use fire. The moment of connection was like touching a live wire that carried the thoughts of an entire species. Dr. Kim's fingers flew over her console as she launched humanity's most audacious weapon, a biological virus designed not to destroy tissue, but to corrupt information. Years of studying captured Devourer components had revealed that their collective intelligence operated like a vast immune system, sharing information instantly across the entire network. That sharing mechanism was about to become their greatest vulnerability. "Viral upload initiated," Kim announced, her voice tight with concentration. "The corrupted data is propagating through their command network. They're trying to process information that doesn't exist, solve equations with impossible solutions." On the main display, the Devourer fleet began to show signs of distress. Ships that had moved in perfect coordination for 1,000 years suddenly broke formation. Their weapon systems powered down and reactivated randomly. Some vessels began moving in circles, their navigation systems receiving contradictory commands from the compromised network. "It's working." Torres breathed in amazement. "They're actually confusing themselves to death." But the Devourers were not defenseless. Their collective intelligence, ancient and vast, began to recognize the intrusion. Emergency protocols activated throughout the fleet as they attempted to isolate the corrupted sections of their network. "They're adapting," Kim warned. "Estimated time before they identify and neutralize the virus: 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Chief Chen's voice crackled over the intercom with barely controlled excitement. "Captain, I've got an idea. It's completely insane and will definitely kill us, but it might work." "I'm listening," Vasquez replied, watching as several Devourer ships began to turn their weapons toward the Resilience. "The virus is spreading through their network, but they're starting to build firewalls. However, their entire collective intelligence is based on shared processing power. What if we don't just corrupt their data? What if we overwhelm their entire system with more information than they can process?" Dr. Kim caught on immediately. "A feedback loop. We use their own communication network to broadcast the virus back to itself, creating an infinite cycle of corrupted information. The power requirements would be enormous," Torres warned. "We'd have to channel everything through the modified systems, including life support." Vasquez didn't hesitate. "Do it." The next 60 seconds transformed the UES Resilience into something that had never existed before. A human ship powered entirely by alien technology, broadcasting a virus designed by human creativity into a collective intelligence that had conquered galaxies. Chief Chen diverted all power to the interface systems, leaving the crew in darkness except for the eerie glow of Devourer technology that now pulsed through every corridor. Dr. Kim's viral programs multiplied exponentially, each iteration more complex than the last, designed to force the enemy network to spend more and more processing power trying to understand information that became increasingly nonsensical. The effect on the Devourer fleet was immediate and catastrophic. Ships that had functioned flawlessly for millennia began to shut down as their collective intelligence consumed itself trying to process the impossible data. The command vessel shuddered as its central processors overloaded, sparks cascading from systems that had never experienced failure. "They're cascading," Kim reported with professional satisfaction. "Each ship that goes offline reduces the network's total processing power, making the remaining vessels even more vulnerable to the viral load." One by one, the 17 ships of the Devourer fleet went dark. Their perfect formation dissolved into chaos as vessels lost power, lost navigation, lost the collective intelligence that had made them invincible. Within 10 minutes, an armada that could have conquered the galaxy had been reduced to derelict hulks drifting through space. The Resilience herself was dying. Her modified systems had burned out from the massive power overload. Her hull was cracked in a dozen places, and her life support was failing. But her crew was alive, and more importantly, they had succeeded. "Captain," Torres called from her dying console, "we're receiving transmissions from the Galactic Fleet. Admiral Krickstall wants to know our status." Vasquez leaned back in her command chair, exhausted but victorious. "Tell the Admiral that the threat has been neutralized. And Lieutenant, tell him that next time someone offers to help, maybe he should listen before he laughs." As rescue ships arrived to extract the Resilience's crew from their dying vessel, the galaxy's military leaders finally understood what they had witnessed. Humanity didn't fight with superior technology or overwhelming numbers. They fought with creativity, adaptability, and the kind of desperate innovation that came from refusing to accept that any problem was truly unsolvable. The UES resilience had been mocked as scrap metal, dismissed as a pathetic contribution to the galaxy's defense. But in the hands of humans who saw opportunity where others saw only limitation, that worthless mining ship had accomplished what the combined might of 12 civilizations thought impossible. The Devourers were gone, their 1,000-year threat ended not by the galaxy's mightiest weapons, but by the ingenuity of a species that had learned to turn every disadvantage into a weapon, every limitation into an opportunity. And across the galaxy, military strategists began to reconsider their assumptions about what made a weapon truly dangerous. It wasn't the size of the gun or the power of the shield. It was the mind behind them, the creativity that could see solutions where others saw only problems. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not through conquest, but through the simple, terrifying ability to make the impossible seem routine.